Gerald Conti is a retired teacher from New York, and recently he did a Facebook post where he explained why he decided to retire at the age of 62. And he went on this very long rant about how his profession no longer exists, which is fascinating. Of course, we still need teachers. Why doesn't his profession exist? And he says that there is too much of an emphasis on standardized testing, and it has destroyed public education. In the efforts to reform public education, these legislators have actually destroyed it because there's too much pressure on students to learn to take tests as opposed to learn for, enlightenment.
Yeah, look, I graduated high school in 1994, so I'm a little out of the game, but I can just talk from my experience, which I remember so vividly when the SATs and, going to the tutor for the SAT, and basically it becomes this socioeconomic game. If you can afford a tutor and you can afford to go 3 days after school, well, you're naturally going to get higher test scores. And the fact that all the teachers now are just machines pumping out these standardized tests. I had a math teacher who, I never liked math. I always liked, social studies and English, stuff like that. And I was really bad at math. And he used to make tests that he would do himself that had something to do with what was going on in class. Like he'd mention us in the questions. And it was the one time I could actually do math because he personalized it. But that's actually the complete reverse of all this standardized testing stuff. And you're just making robots. I mean, we're just making robots that can memorize facts, but can't critically think and can't, problem solve on their own and that whole thing.
This is part of the reason why the U.S. is falling behind when it comes to public education. Of course, defunding public education, which is something that's become a huge problem in the United States, is a factor in all of this. But one thing that there isn't enough emphasis on is how standardized testing is not a good way to educate our students. It's not a good way to measure how well students are absorbing the information. So, for instance, I loved school. I loved reading. I was one of those nerdy kids that sat front and center. But when it came to standardized tests, I had so much anxiety that I never did well. So anyone who didn't know me and just looked at those results would think that I was a complete and utter moron.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a really unfair thing. And also keep in mind that some students have certain advantages over other students. So if you are from a relatively wealthy family, you can take certain classes to prep you for those tests. For instance, the SATs or the GREs. But if you come from a poor family, you don't have those resources.
Not only do you not have the resources, but you don't even learn the game of the test taking. So for example, with the SATs, I don't know if this is how it is right now in 2013, but there used to be words that they'd use every couple years. So literally you were just memorizing words. You didn't even have to know what the word meant. You had to know what, you'd have to know the word and then, relate it to something, but you didn't have to have any meaning that you could carry with you after you took the test.
And then you have these tests that are purposely tricky, and it's like, why do you want to trick me? But don't you just want to measure how smart I am? I would hate that too, where they would purposely make it so complicated that you would have to spend a significant amount of time on one question, and then they time you. Oh my God, I hated standardized tests.
You remember those? You remember those math logic tests where they'd say if this happens, then this, if then this. I remember they had one, and I'm 99% sure this was the SATs, that it was something like if Magic Johnson plays, the Lakers win, and if Larry Bird gets injured, the Celtics lose, or something like that. And I remember thinking at the time, that actually is not logic because the Lakers don't win every time Magic Johnson plays. So they were trying to give us a real world example that actually disproved logic because otherwise the Lakers would have never lost a game. Which certainly doesn't apply this season.